CM Punk just revealed his side of the story about his departure from AEW, going off about Tony Khan, calling him a clown, discussing his departure from the company, the All Out incident, a little bit about the Brawl Out incident. There's a lot to get into. We're going to be listening to some excerpts from his recent interview with Ariel Helwani from the MMA Hour. That's coming up in just a second. Be sure, if you haven't already, though, to be smashing that like button, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell. So this was a massive interview that Ariel Helwani had built up over the past few days. CM Punk, unfiltered, uncensored. Were we going to get the revelations of his departure from AEW? Well, we got that, and I think more than a lot of people expected. So I'm going to be playing some audio from the interview. We're going to be reacting to it, and I'm going to be giving my commentary as well. So let's just start off. This is Ariel Helwani asking CM Punk about the Jack Perry incident.
You know, be super fancy and shit like that.
Where are you backstage? Jack Perry's on screen, and he says, real glass, why don't you cry about it? Where are you when this is said?
I was in my locker room.
Did you feel like that was directed at you?
Yes.
Why?
Okay, obviously it was directed at me.
Well, because, okay, so for those that may not know, apparently he had a trip planned. He wanted to use glass. You were consulted. You said, why would you use glass? Correct me, you lived it. So I'm trying to bring people up to speed.
This is one of those things where it's just like, there's all these rumors about NDAs.
Yes.
There's a big difference between not being allowed to talk about some shit or just not wanting to talk about some shit. I don't necessarily want to litigate this again.
You say again, you've never talked about it publicly.
No, I guess I haven't, but that's the thing. So Tony's big idea was separate show. We're going to separate everybody. And I said, that'll never work. Just let me go. Just get me out of here. Just pay me my money. I've already been off TV. I hurt this arm. Just get me out of here. You know?
So real quick, what CM Punk is alluding to there is that before he returned to AEW in the summer of 2023, he had asked for his release. He said that my arm is hurt. I want to be gone. It's not working out. Let's just let me go. Let's just end this relationship now. And it's something that Punk actually brings up multiple times as we're going to be listening to this. But it is important. It is important because Punk, it was very clear that Punk, before he came back to AEW, just did not want to be there.
You know, no, I can't let you go. Why? Just let me go. Who cares? It's best. I mean, these guys don't want me here. This isn't a real business. This isn't a business predicated on making money, drawing money, selling tickets, you know, doing business. It's not what it was sold to me as. So let me go. No, I can't let you go. I'm going to do this new show. You're going to have blah, blah, blah. And then the second day we have the show, I'm sitting in catering, minding my own business. And Tony Schiavone comes and gets me. And he's like, hey, I really need your help. And I was like, what? He's like, Jack is, cussing me out. And he's cussed out Mike Mansuri and he cussed out Daryl from production. And he's cussing out the doctor right now. Why? And I was immediately like, dude isn't supposed to be here. I was told people are getting separated, so there's not problems, and you don't want me involved in this because just like everything else I've explained before, like, y'all need to handle this because if you don't, I'm going to handle it, and you're not going to like the way I handle it. Prophetic words. So he's begging me. Now, please, he drags me out of catering. I go up. Hook and Jack are doing an angle. I don't know anything about Jack going on vacation. All I know is there's a litany of people that don't want, they work one day a week and they don't want to. So they want to show up and wrestle and then film vignettes and then sit at home for 4 weeks. Great, not my company. Do what you want. But not on my show. That was my attitude. So I said, Tony, you really want me doing this? Yeah. And I walked up to Jack and he was sitting in a car. What he wanted to do, it was a rental car. What he wanted to do was smash the window of the rental car with a pipe. And I was just like, it's a rental car. And I very politely, because I like Jack, I was just like, Doc's told you no, Daryl's told you no, Mike's told you no, Shivani's told you no, and now I have to tell you no. And apparently you've cussed them all out. So I'm telling you no. We don't do that here. If you want to do this, go to Wednesday and do it, right? And he had no problem. He said, okay. He said, well, I just thought it was a really cool idea. And I said, it might be, but this is a rental car. The boys ruin it for the boys. You're going to smash the window of a rental car and you're going to return it with no fucking window. And now whatever national budget hurts, whatever is going to be like, don't rent cars to pro wrestlers anymore. This is a thing that's happened.
Right.
This is, so I wasn't trying to throw my weight around. I wasn't like, this is my show and you got to get out of here. I was just like, this is fucking dumb, man. And he wanted to do it so he didn't have to fly back to Canada. And I, sorry, man, we're privileged to be in this business. We're privileged to do this for a living. Like, I get it. I didn't want to go to Canada either. All the flights were delayed, canceled. Everybody's travel sucked. But to come to this new show when everyone's supposed to be separated to get rid of all the drama and then, swearing at the doctor because the doctor's like, it's real glass. You're going to, like, shit's going to go in your eye. Like, and I get it. I used to be that kid that was like young and I want to do this, but there's a safe way to do it. And I politely explained that to him. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cuss at him. I was just like, I very much just said, we don't do that here. This is Saturday. It's a different show. If you want to do stuff like this, do it on Wednesday. That was it. I didn't think there was going to be a problem. He obviously took something very business-minded, very personally, and that's fine because I've done that before too. But it's very much who he's friends with, and shit never got squashed. Nobody's in charge.
Okay, so Punk kind of is going to go up there, and then we're going to listen to it as well. But real quick, the implication by Punk is that the conversation between himself and Jack Perry that took place in the summer of 2023, that was the talk about this reuse of real glass on Collision. According to Punk, it was pretty cordial, and that there was really nothing that was out of the ordinary to him. I think from what Punk has even said there is a clear instance of miscommunication, because Punk said he didn't know that Jack was going to be going on vacation, and that's why he was filming the vignette, and it was already pre-approved vacation. But at the same time, he kind of took Jack trying to, write himself off TV for a week or whatever, as he doesn't want to travel or whatever. And it just seems like there was that miscommunication there. And this is also, going alongside the Punk side of the reports that have come out, because there were multiple sides of the report that came out of this Jack Perry incident in the summer of 2023 about the glass. The report from Jack's side was, Punk kind of just like came up to him and was like, oh, like you can't be doing this, kid, all that kind of stuff. And meanwhile, from Punk's side, we heard that very similar story about what Punk's perspective was here. And it was that, hey, look, I was told by Tony Schiavone, I was told by all these guys to go talk to him. So I talked to the kid, and he doesn't know what led to what would he eventually would do at All In, which Punk will get into in great detail, and shocking detail, honestly, in just a second. But it does kind of set the stage here for what was going to happen, because this seems like, and everything that Punk talks about in this interview, everything that Punk talks about, and everything that's happened with Punk, honestly, in AEW just seems to be a case of like horrible miscommunication across like everyone. I think nobody in this entire situation communicated well from my perspective. And we've said this before, we'll say it again. It just oof.
And it turned into what it turned into.
So he says that, clearly shot at you, as you said. Match is over. He goes to the back. What happens?
I went to Tony, and I was just like,
which Tony, by the way?
This is, by the way, talking about All In.
Khan.
Okay.
And I was like, please handle that. Like, please. And he was like, what do you want me to do? And I was like, I'm not telling you what to do. Just be the boss, please. Like, I'm tired of this shit. Like I told you it was a mistake. I told you separate shows wasn't going to work, and now we're all here, and, like, please handle it. Because if you don't, you're not going to like the way I handle it.
Did he handle it?
No.
So you did?
Yeah.
What happened?
Jack came back from his match. I was the next match. I'm sitting there. I got people with me. I'm not going to say who they are, because I got a lot of friends who work there, and I wish them all well, and I don't want them to be punished because they're friends with me, And I walk up to him, and I'm just like, Jack, why do you insist on doing this dumb internet shit like on TV, And he's just like, well, if you got a problem about it, do something about it. And I was just like, man, come on, man, I'll fucking kill you. Like, what are we doing, And it just, it's like Chael says, sometimes you just can't let you get close, I thought I was doing a responsible thing, I didn't punch anybody. I just choked somebody a little bit. Samoa Joe was there, told me to stop, and then I quit. I turned to Tony and I said, this place is a fucking joke, man. You're a clown. I quit.
You're a clown. I quit. Those are the words that CM Punk uttered to Tony Khan immediately following the All In incident. You also heard that CM Punk very clearly said that he went up to Tony Khan and he said that if you don't handle this, I will. And that Tony was kind of like, I don't know what to do. And, a lot of people are going to look at this as, Punk's a lion, Punk's whatever. However, we are, and the great thing about this interview is that we are getting Punk's basically unfiltered perspective. And part of that perspective is what I think many people kind of skirt around, which is AEW being a new company over the past few years has just not had the structures in place to deal with certain situations. This is a clear example of that. And it's not something that is a surprise to anyone, I don't think. I don't think it's anything that's, shocking. It isn't breaking news that, a company that's like 3-4 years old at this point doesn't have the systems in place to try to deal with these like big egos and all these kinds of things. And like, it speaks to something that we have heard quite a while from AEW, and that is that, you know, it is a fun place to wrestle. It's a fun place to work, and, you know, it's a profitable business. And Punk's going to talk about whether or not he believes that that is true, but it does speak to, you know, AEW. One of their biggest issues is like those, having that structure in place, having places people can go to, having those guardrails in place to prevent big incidents like this. And look, this is not trying to absolve Punk of his involvement in this. I think he found himself in the middle of a lot of messes in All Elite Wrestling. And I've covered that ad nauseum, but listening to his perspective, we're going to talk about his perspective and you know, not try to like let the other stuff cloud it. But listening to his perspective, you kind of also hear a guy who is just time after time after time, will you handle it, Tony? Will you handle it, Tony? Will you handle it, Tony? And it's just not happening. And that seems to be one of the biggest gripes that Punk had in this whole thing. Like, shit wouldn't get handled, and at the end of the day, he felt like it just was not working, and this was not worth it. And as you heard there, I mean, like, look, and again, I will say this, Punk even admitted it there. He's like, I didn't hurt nobody. I just kind of choked him out a little bit. It's like, okay, come on. You're joking out your coworkers. I don't care what business you're in. I don't care about any of that. Like, look, that is a big deal. And like, again, that doesn't mean they shouldn't have worked past it. I think they could have worked past it. But when you find yourself in these types of situations time after time and time again, it is just, it's an indicative of another problem. And that is separate from AEW's existing structural issues, right? It's indicative of a whole different issue.
I went to my room, and then Joe and Jerry Lynn came and got me, and they're like, let's just go out there and kill it. And I was just too fired up, and I'm fired up now, and I'm probably going to regret, you know, talking about all this shit, but that's what happened.
Okay, so for those that don't know, you actually did go out and wrestle.
Yes.
Is that all just a blur for you, that match? Do you even remember?
No, that match is I was just like, this is the last time I'm ever going to wrestle Samoa Joe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is my last match in this company.
And it was?
You knew that?
Yeah, I quit. I fucking quit.
So why did you even go out?
For Joe.
Right.
For Joe, for Paul Turner, the referee, for Jerry Lynn, the agent on the match, because I, you know, respect him, and I thought it was the professional thing to do. All the fans, you know, a lot of fans there.
Yeah.
You know, probably a lot of them to see me, you know, so go out there and give them a show.
100,000 fans, right?
I don't know. You have to check the turnstile count.
And so you go to the back.
sock.
What happens then? Like, your match is over. Great match. What happens?
They told me Jack was told to leave, and I was like, do I got to leave? I was like, I want to watch the show. And they're like, no, it's fine. And then, I don't know, a couple matches later, a very nice man by the name of Sam, he was in charge of security. He was like, what are your plans for the rest of the night? And I was like, I was just going to shower and just hang out and watch the show, you know? Because I, you know, the whole solo locker room thing is fucking lame. I had Joe, I had House of Black, I had all these guys with me. And I was just like, I just want to watch your match, you know? And then he just kind of looked at me and I went, is it easier for you in your job if I leave? And he's just like, yeah, it might be. He's like, but nobody's telling you got to go. Like, you know, and I was just like, well, Sam, I'm a man to man. I'm not trying to fuck up your day. You got a job to do. So if it's easier for you, if I split, I'll split. And then I went and got Nando's for a bunch of the boys and went to my hotel room. And, you know, when the show was over, they came by and we ate chicken.
Tremendous spot, by the way.
Nando's is great.
Spicy, the rice.
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
chips.
Peri, buddy.
agree
That's
with
right.
that.
Yeah.
Did you have to have a conversation? Because what was told to us was you were fired with cause. So you said quit. The devil's in the details there, but did you have a conversation with Tony to say, okay, this is it, we're done. There's not going to be, you have not talked to him?
Nope.
Really? The last time you talked to him was backstage at Wembley?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. He went on air several days later and said he's never been afraid for his life like this. He's been going to shows for 30 years, felt fearful for his life, for the safety of the workers. When you saw this, what is your reaction when you see this? Not only was it it was a promo on TV, but then he also spoke to the crowd, right? There was a clip that surfaced of him talking to the people in your town, right? I believe it was in Chicago.
So I was there live in Chicago when Tony Khan did this, just interrupting real quick. I was there live, and it was a weird feeling being there live after the news had broken. Like, the news had broken just a few hours before this. And then, like, we get to the arena, and Tony weirdly takes out, like, a chair and very dramatically, like, sits down, and he's, like, sitting down. Basically, like, I thought for a second, I was like, is he cutting a promo? Like, what's happening? It was a very weird thing. And now I kind of understand what Tony was going for there. He was trying to, you know, talk to the audience in Chicago, because he knew that a lot of them were there to see CM Punk, and he knew that a lot of them were disappointed that CM Punk was going to be there. So I think this was his attempt to try to, like, in his way, make good on that. But it worked, I think, in the arena at the time. But obviously, like, Punk, you know, for his own reasons, and I'm not going to invalidate them, did not think that was right. And as you will hear in this, like, Punk also talks about how, he felt like some of that stuff was not true.
Just outside?
Yeah.
When you saw that version of the story being put out, what is your reaction?
I mean, I can't tell you what Tony felt or what he was thinking, but I never did anything that would make him fear for his life.
The report from Dave Meltzer and the Wrestling Observer newsletter was that CM Punk lunged at Tony Khan. And Tony said that he feared for his life. Of course, there are two sides to this story, because one side saying something happened, the other side saying nothing happened. Somewhere in the middle, there's the truth. Apparently, at Wembley, they have footage of this. It will never be released. We'll never see it. But there is footage of this that exists. And allegedly, that was taken into account when they were doing this whole investigation into whether or not or how to, discipline Punk. But, man, it is crazy.
But, he's who he is.
Did you feel like your reputation was being slandered?
Of course.
Someone hears that and you think, I'll be honest, I hear that and I did Punk attack Tony?
Yeah, I know. And everyone's like, oh my God, think of the billionaires. Like,
right.
No,
Think of the billionaires, man. The billionaires are people too.
Very much as a part of, there's a concerted effort to, I guess, slander me and try to ruin my character and stuff like that. Like, and that's kind of the genesis of all the drama, like, don't do that. Why are you doing that to a guy who works for your company? Why are you lying? Why are you spreading rumors and lies and bullshit about your top guy? Doesn't make any sense. You're only hurting yourself. You're trying to dim my stuff. I don't know, jealousy, envy. I don't really know. And again, it's not really the time to litigate it all and everything, but like, it's an unfortunate situation. I have a lot of friends there and there's a lot of good people that work there. I hope they continue to get paid. And I wish them well.
How would you describe what it's like working for Tony?
So, I mean, again, Punk makes it very clear there that he does not believe that things that he did amounted to the criticism that he got from AEW. And we've talked before how AEW, in addition to firing Punk with cause, like, I think one of the reasons you saw them publicly fire him in the way that they did was because they were trying to leave no doubt as far as the liability and where that laid. Because in their minds, they felt like Punk was a liability. And I think this is their way of kind of like, in a weird PR way, kind of getting ahead of the story. That is what, in PR you do. Again, we don't know the full details. I cannot tell you whether or not Tony Khan going out there and saying what he said and putting it all out there was the right thing to do. But I think in a way, that decision was to get ahead of this. And this is what companies will do this. They will try to control the narrative. That is a thing that will happen. And I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong, because we don't know who is in the right or wrong about this specific scenario for sure. There are criticisms that you can levy again on both sides. But the one thing that I do know is that this is a tactic companies use all the time. Like, control the narrative. Get your story out first. That's the story that sticks in people's minds. It's a very, very prominently and often used, thing in PR.
Man, it's a loaded question, because I don't want this to be. I don't like the drama, But I mean, it's the truth is the truth. Like,
okay, come on. He likes the drama a little bit. Like even Punk's got to admit that he likes the drama a little bit.
He's not a boss. He's a nice guy, And I think ultimately that is a detriment to the company. But it's not my company. I'm an outsider. I thought I was brought in to sell merchandise and tickets and draw numbers for pay-per-views and stuff, and I clearly did that. But that's not what the place was about, and some people didn't like that.
Is there any part of you that's always like, man, I'm 45. I'm tired of this shit?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. Did you saw my exasperated press conference when I'm eating Mindy's?
Yes, of course.
Drinking Spindrift.
So
there's very much a guy who's just, I'm too old for this shit.
So you just talked about how this all started. So then we go to the feud with Hangman Page, right? Adam Page. And it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, when you debut in August of 2021, up until like the spring of 2022, it's pretty good times, right? You have that great.
I thought so, yeah.
But then when he says, I'm not here to just, fight you, I'm here to protect you or protect the locker room from you, right? Yeah. In so many words. And the story is that he, went off script, so to speak, and really pissed you off by saying that. Did you feel like that was the first time that your reputation, that your character was being slandered?
What he said didn't it didn't matter to me. But when you sit, peeling the curtain back, ladies and gentlemen, and again, if you want to believe all the bad things about me, please do. Just leave me alone. If I'm working with you and we sit and we talk, and I think one of the biggest criticisms about WWE was it's overly scripted. There's writers. Pro wrestlers don't need writers. Some people don't. Some people do. Some people prefer it. Right? It's but I sat down with him. And we hammered. I was very gracious. Hammered out this promo. Oh, if you say this, what if you say this? Okay, I'll say this. Oh, if you say that, I'll say this. Okay, great, yeah, awesome, great. And then he proceeds to go on live TV and not say any of the shit that we talked about. I can't hear him because the crowd's so loud, and I'm looking at him, and I have to really pay attention to what he's saying because my responses matter. I can't just say what I had planned because it's not going to match what he's saying to me. And he's saying some shit. I don't know what he's talking about, and I'm just like, man, why would you do this? Why would you ruin? TV is very expensive. Every minute of TV is hundreds of thousands of dollars between production and all that stuff. And you're just shitting on me. You're shitting on the business. Why would you do this? And I knew the promo ended with him punching me. And I had to fight just double leg him. Just double leg. Why is he doing this? I don't know what's going on, but I was a professional. And afterwards, I spoke to him and I was like, why'd you do that? And, he thinks I got one of his friends who hasn't been fired. But I went to Tony and the lawyer and I said, you need to fix that. Because if I do, you're not going to like the way I fix it.
You need to fix that once again, and Punk will say this again in this interview with Ariel Helwani. But if you need to fix that, or if you don't fix that, I will. And that is Punk's kind of, if you have a problem with me, come see me, type of deal. Because Tony Khan just, again, according to Punk, just never fixed this. The interesting thing here is, everyone remembers when this story first broke back in 2022. This was the week after Punk had returned in Minneapolis and had come back. And it was right the same night he had that promo battle with Jon Moxley where they ended up having this big brawler. And it was announced that the match was going to be the next week. And that was the squash match with Mox. But the interesting thing here was that the story that we had heard and the stories that had come out in the days following the Punk's return, all stemmed from Punk calling out Hangman Page on live TV and saying that when he didn't come out, that's not cowboy shit, that's coward shit. That is when this story really, I think, got big, and wrestling fans really noticed it, because when you go back and you look at Hangman's promo, ain't nobody in that moment thought anything of it outside of the people who were aware of that situation, who were backstage in AEW. The public did not know. And Punk adding this context, again, from his side and his perspective, I think opens up the door for, more criticism levied the way of potentially Hangman. And again, I'll be honest with you, Hangman Page is probably one of my favorite wrestlers out there. However, if we're looking at this analytically, right, or, and looking at the situation for what it is, according to Punk's side, if it's true that Hangman Page went out there and they had agreed on a promo and they had agreed on saying these things, and it wasn't just a line that he had uttered that he wasn't supposed to utter, which is the narrative that has been out there, this looks bad on Hangman. And it does make him look bad, even worse in his light. And it does. And if it's true that Hangman Page, literally did not say anything that they had agreed upon, he did go into business for himself. And again, I want to be clear, this is Punk's side of the story. There have been, and Punk is a hell of a storyteller. He's a hell of a storyteller. This is a guy who knows how to spin a yarn. He knows how to talk. And we're doing it now. Like, to this day, some of the best and biggest interviews in wrestling history belong to this man, CM Punk. And guys, it's because of stuff like this. So when we have a situation where according to Punk, Hangman Page didn't say what was agreed upon, Hangman Page said all this stuff, and it was all, when he got backstage, Punk talked to him, it was all because of the Colt Cabana stuff, and it never gotten taken care of. It looks a little bit worse on Hangman Page, and it looks a lot more worse on Tony Khan and AEW management. And I said it's going to be something I'll say like over and over again. AEW management should have taken care of this and nipped it in the bud way before.
And I thought I was being professional by not just murdering him on television,
Okay, well, all right. I thought I was being professional by not murdering. He's being a little hyperbolic there, but not as hyperbolic as I think you were supposed to think. Even if Hangman Page went into business for himself there, I don't think it would have been right for Punk to attack him. No selling him is a different thing. He could have no sold that punch, and just stood there. And that could have been like a bit of a receipt. But, saying you wouldn't attack him, that just looks bad on you.
I know some people are going to be upset about that. And some people are going to be like,
I'm not upset. I'm just like, I'm just analyzing it. It's what I do. It's the wonderful world of professional wrestling.
oh, he's talking about this guy again. But with me, respect is the default. I respect everybody until you do something that makes me lose my respect for you. And I had never done anything to any of those guys. If they're basing how their attitude is towards me based on some bullshit their friend told them, well, I can't help you. But I got plenty of friends who don't like certain people, and I keep relationships business. Right? And yeah, that's everything went off the rails from there. It's a shame. It's a shame. It's really a shame.
And you guys have a match, I believe from what you have said, you were kind of thinking the whole time that it would go off the rails in the match, so you couldn't really like fully.
Well, how could I trust him?
Right, of course.
Yeah.
You injure your foot, right? You break your foot.
The week after, yeah.
Take some time off, come back, and then it's the Moxley match.
Yeah.
You win. When you are getting ready to go to that scrum, did you know that you were about to unload all of this, or is it just something in the moment that kind of took over you?
No, getting out there and seeing reporters that report shit about you like it's fact without ever checking with you to see if stuff happened, who are openly friends with other wrestlers, it's just fucking high school. It's high school, cliquey, mean girls, drama bullshit. And I get there and I see these goofs, and I just, lose.
As a goof, I do want to say that, there is a level of seriousness, and I will be honest in this. There is a certain level of seriousness in these press conferences that I think that there should be, but I also this is a reason why I don't like you really using the term journalists or reporters to to describe wrestling media. I like the term media is probably a better term for what it is, because a lot of it are just like fans who write and talk about and analyze the sport or the the show, and that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. I think we add value. I think we add a lot of fun to people's lives because we talk about wrestling. Does that go over the line sometimes? Obviously. But at the same time, I also and I think this is part of the misconception that fans have, and a lot of people do market themselves as journalists, and I'm not going to say whether or not people are, but from the way I view it, that's why I say I use the term insiders to describe people, who add that inside scoop and those informations, and not saying that they're not journalists. People are I think there are a lot of people like Sean Ross Sapp is someone who I think used a lot of journalistic integrity in his reporting. And I think it's great, if people want to call him a journalist, I think that's fair to do. But I think the safer term overall to use for people who report on these types of things are insiders, because that's what they are, and that's not taking away any journalistic integrity they may have. And then there's a lot of people who just have a podcast like me, people who have radio shows, people who have programs and things like that. And I think that part of it, I think that term journalism or journalist and that term reporter really muddies the water too much, because at the end of the day, a lot of it is having fun talking and reporting on pro wrestling. It's not the same as, going out there asking Biden or Donald Trump questions. No, we're here to have fun. We're here to advance the sport. We're here to advance the show. We're here to talk about what fans want to talk about. And that's really what this is.
Lose my temper. Top 3 CM Punk promos, though.
It was tremendous.
Yeah,
I know you don't like the. Do you like Pipe Bomb now? Because I know one time famously you said you hated Pipe Bomb.
Again, what are we going to do? Are we going to credit me for changing the vernacular of how people talk about promos? Or we can just be like, he's overrated. You got to pick a lane.
I like it.
Yeah. I don't mind.
How many terms are that associated with a person, right?
Yeah.
Someone says Pipe Bomb, they know they're talking about you.
That's how I know I did something great that night.
Sure.
People are still talking about it.
That's 2011.
Yeah.
That's 13 years. So you do that, you say all that, and it's fascinating going back and watching it because it's clear that Tony's a little bit uncomfortable sitting next to you.
Nothing he'd never heard before.
Mm-hmm. Maybe he didn't know that it would come out right then and there.
Should I?
That's crazy. So that is an interesting note. A lot of us at the time thought, oh man, Tony's hearing this all in front of him for the first time, and he's so shocked at it. And the shock, according to Punk, was not that he had never heard this or these were things that he wasn't aware of that Punk thought. The shock was, holy crap, he's doing this in front of everyone on live TV or live YouTube, whatever. That's crazy. So that is an interesting tidbit there.
handled it.
What happens when that scrum is over?
Went home, got surgery, got my arm fixed.
Can you not talk about that?
I don't think I can.
That's Brawl Out, right?
Yeah.
That's the one where there is an actual...
Yeah.
Is there anything you could tell us about that?
I didn't have to sign an NDA for anything I did wrong.
Interesting.
You know,
What does that mean?
it means I have nothing to hide, and I don't give a shit if people...
So just for the record, once and for all, can you tell us what happened?
No,
Okay.
there's...
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
Oh, for that particular
There's an NDA in place for that one, yeah.
You did speak to Mark Ramundi when you came back, right, of ESPN, my pal, and you did say that you kind of regretted the way that was all handled. Is that...
Well, sure. I mean, I think you can go back and be like, well, I wish I never did the scrum. Scrums are stupid anyway.
Would you prefer if...
Okay, so real quick before you buries the scrums, the takeaway here is that CM Punk said that he did nothing wrong and that he did not sign an NDA because of anything he did wrong. There is an NDA that was signed, and he confirms that, but he didn't do anything wrong. So in Punk's view, you know, the story reportedly from Punk's camp was something along the lines of the Bucks and Kenny Omega kicked down the door, or they came in, they barged their way in aggressively, and they were the aggressors. And then that's kind of what led to the exacerbated emotions in the fight. You know, the other side of the story was that they came in with the head of legal, Mega, and by all accounts, like that seems like what happened. Like they brought in the head of legal, and then Punk was the aggressor in their view. And you will never, I think, get these people to admit the other were the aggressors. But Punk basically says they're like, look, if I was able to talk about this today, I am 100% confident in my story. I'm 100% confident in my actions. I'm 100% confident that I did nothing wrong, and that the only reason there was an NDA is because of the things, you know, the elite side did. That is the translation that we're getting here. And again, if that's true, making Punk look like a really, really like level-headed good guy and really bad on the elite, which again is to be expected because this is Punk's side. And again, not invalidating. I'm like saying like this is a perspective we need to listen to.
There just wasn't a scrum.
Yeah, those things are really cringe.
Yeah.
Like it's pro wrestling. Maybe do one. Like I did one like the day I came back. I was like, oh, this is a big deal. Like I get it, you know. But the problem you have with pro wrestling is just anybody with a Twitter calls themselves a reporter or a journalist or whatever.
No, I don't call
and I
myself a journalist
experienced it firsthand. You know, the amount of misinformation that came out based on that. And again, I will go back to, you want to believe all that shit? I'm Bruiser Brody and I'm running around, I'm running through the hallways and I'm just fucking sucker punching people and all that. Great, man. Awesome. Believe it. Because I'm over here and I'm making money off it and you ain't. Believe it. But it's just the amount of just lies and bullshit. It feels a little bit good to say that a lot of it is lies and bullshit, you know? But everyone's gonna, the people that don't like me based on that stuff, they don't like me anyway. They're not my audience anyway, you know? I don't know what else to say.
Can I ask about, why is there an NDA? Like, so something happened, things happen, people have talked about them, worse things have happened in pro wrestling and in life. Why is there an NDA for this particular one?
You would have to ask the person that wanted me to sign an NDA.
Would that be Tony?
Yeah.
I did try to ask him about it one time in an interview.
I can't
it didn't go very well.
I can't imagine he answered you.
No.
Yeah. And again, I am very uncomfortable right now. Like,
In fact, it didn't just go. It didn't just not go well. It led to a major beef between Ariel Helwani and Tony Khan, which, by the way, you can hear a full breakdown of over on patreon.com/Real Take Wrestling, where I broke down their feud in depth. It's exclusive to Patreon. It will never be back up on YouTube. It is there. Go check it out. $5 a month, and you can get access to that and hours of pro wrestling awesomeness presented by Real Take Wrestling. But seriously, going to the Ariel Helwani stuff here, like Ariel Helwani had that interview with Tony Khan, and it did not go well. Tony refused to answer questions. Ariel Helwani went on Twitter and then said it was one of the worst interviews that he had ever done, and that he felt like it was like a waste of time, basically. And that led to a feud between these two. Like, Ariel Helwani at one point accused Tony Khan, or implied that he was doing coke, you know, kind of feeding off those internet rumors, and things got pretty ugly between them, you know, and I think that's also playing a role into this interview as well. We'd be remiss if we did not remember that.
I figured it was inevitable when I walked in the door, you know, but I also didn't want to be the guy that was just like, I appreciate that question, Ariel, can't talk about it for 90 minutes or 60 minutes or whatever, you know. Like, I'm a human being, and this is real life shit that happened, and I don't mind talking about it because, again, I didn't want anybody to sign an NDA to hide some kind of bullshit that I did. You know?
In your mind, when that was done, did you think that perhaps you were done with the company?
Yeah.
You would have preferred that. And for the record, did you injure your tricep? Can you tell us that? If not, I understand. In the incident, or was it in the match? Okay.
So for y'all out there, he did not say anything, but he shrugged, saying he didn't know. I will say this: there is like video if you watch the pay-per-view of Punk when he did that dive to the outside, like he was kind of holding that tricep, in that arm. So like there potentially is credence to the fact that he injured it during the match. It of course probably was exacerbated in the brawl out incident. So it is what it is.
Damn.
Yeah.
Will you ever be able to talk about this?
I don't know.
Is there a? Okay.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. Why does anybody want to talk about it?
Well, just for the record, just to know.
It's grown into this ridiculous thing, Like, again, just go ahead and believe what you want.
So you go away, and it's kind of good timing because obviously you never want to get hurt, but we don't know if you're suspended, if you're hurt, if you're recovering from surgery, you just disappear. Did you ever get close to being let go at that point? You said at the beginning of all this, you said, please, let's just do it here.
Well, nobody in the company spoke to me for, I don't know, six months.
How's that possible?
I don't know.
Not a soul.
Paid for my surgery, booked my surgery. Thankfully, Dr. Sampson, who I knew from WWE, I have good rapport with, like he helped me with that. But like I was on my own and all that stuff.
If this is true, and again, this is, I think, one of the more damning things out of this situation. If this is true, then it is a horrible indictment on AEW's process, because someone gets injured in your ring, whether or not they're suspended, whether or not, things happen. If it's true that Punk was not contacted, was not helped out with finding, the right doctor or the surgeon for this, it is not only a horrible look for AEW, but it sends a horrible message to their wrestlers. It sends a message that, if we're feeling it, if we're feeling like it, and we don't want to take care of you in that moment, we won't. And again, one man's perspective, one man's say, but horrible look if this is true.
And, if you think I deserve to be, fired or treated like that, that's your opinion. It's none of my business what you think of me. But, doing this one and the recovery for this one, based on how the recovery went for that one, I'm just like, man, it's night and day. And it's almost the comparison between, places where there's structure and there's protocols and there's professional people in charge of things. And I'm not having to research and find a PT spot. I had no help, like nothing. And that's insane to me. Is that how they treat the Jaguars players? I don't know, but I don't think anybody should be treated like that if you're a professional athlete. I had no help. Nobody would speak to me.
So ultimately, why did you come back?
I've got a lot of friends there, and even though I thought the separate show and separating everybody without getting everybody in a room and squashing it was not going to work, part of me was just like, well, he's not going to let me go. Like I'm either going to be sitting at home or I could try to do some good, and if I can get a crew of people on television and maybe do some fun shows, like that sounded fun to me. Okay, preferably I would like to be out of here, and then I think everybody's happy. Because I don't do this because I need to. I do it because I want to, and it's supposed to be fun, especially at this level,
And could I ask, how much time did you have left on your deal? Like, was it something that you could have maybe dragged your feet and the clock was ticking, or was there a considerable amount of time?
Yeah, maybe I'm the stupid mark. Maybe I should have been like, oh, my arm's not healed. I'm just going to sit at home,
Was it almost done?
My deal? I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I had like a year left.
Could you tell though right away? I mean, you mentioned the Jack, conversation, but could you tell right away that nothing much had changed? That it was like, was there a moment there where you're like, you know what, this could work. This is nice.
No, I knew it. I was like, it's never going to work. You can't. That's not the way you facilitate things. And I'll always go back to so many different stories in wrestling about people flying off the handle and socking each other and then going on to make money. And how many times does it happen on a basketball court? How many times? Like it happened a couple years ago in an NHL practice game. Like the St. Louis Blues started beating the shit out of each other. It's just like I don't know. To me, that's life, and that's where I come from. And to other.
And that speaks to like the difference in perspective, I think, and I think part of it is a generational gap, right? It speaks to the difference in perspective of CM Punk and I think other people, because Punk grew up in a very cutthroat era where it was a Shark Tank. Like you had a locker room full of Undertaker, you had a locker room full of Benoit, you had a locker room full of people who were hardcore Holly, like people who are not like nice people, and you had to be tough to survive in that environment. And I think part of that is like Punk's perspective here. Like he just expects that out of other people. And again, I'm not saying that certain people didn't deserve, to be criticized or Punk didn't deserve to call them out in certain ways. But, the physical violence thing, I think, or the physical part of these things, I think is something that in wrestling is a good thing that we've gone away from. Those things should not happen. And from Punk here, you can hear that, he doesn't necessarily think it's a bad thing.
Other people, it's like the most outrageous thing in the world. I'm the devil.
When you came back, you said that David Zaslav, the head of WBD, calls you One Bill Phil.
Yeah.
And because you're the true, genuine article in this business, in a business full of counterfeit bucks. Was that you going off script?
No, that's me. Because the thing, going back to the pipe bomb, a lot of things that people don't understand about what they think is it's a shoot promo. I never do anything that exposes the business. I know where the line is, and I know where to dip my toe over the line, right? It changed the landscape of WWE because the reason I said Paul Heyman's name and Brock Lesnar's name is because I was not supposed to. Like persona non grata, right? And to me, it's not that big of a deal mentioning these two guys' names. But to everybody, because everybody knew the rules and they knew the parameters and they knew that would specifically piss somebody off. Like I said it. So to me, I'm getting away with murder, but I haven't even like kicked the dog, And everything I said was related to everything that was on television. Same with that line. Now, if you want to think that I was talking about somebody because I was talking about currency and bucks, that's on you. But that's the magic of CM Punk.
He's right. He is right, because I believe that if CM Punk wanted to take a shot at the Young Bucks, like if we're being totally honest, like a real shot at them, he would have just said it. This is not someone who has shied away from doing that. If he wants to, he's done it. He's done it on live AEW programming before. The One Bill Phil like promo where he was like, I'm the only genuine article in the world of counterfeit bucks. That is him kind of towing that line. And it's something he's done for his entire career. Which, does, again, and I think like the Jack Perry thing, like even with CM Punk's side of the story now out there, you kind of look back at that and you're like, well, was Jack just doing a bit of that? Because Punk made a career. Like, if we're being honest, this is a guy who made a career out of doing these like little shoot promos, these little like things. Like he made a career out of it. So to have him like come out there now and like be like, well, it is what it is. I didn't I didn't appreciate that, or I didn't appreciate what someone else had to say, but hey, like I know where my line is, and he says it. I think probably like in just a minute or two, he says like, I know where that line is, but one of the things that I don't think he realizes, or one of the things that doesn't get brought up is like the fact that it's a subjective line. For Sammy Guevara, the line was way farther down than it was for Eddie Kingston when Sammy made fun of him for being, for his weight. Like that, the line was different. And that's what caused problems between them. They were obviously able to work it out. But that line it's not the same for everyone. And I think that's something to really take into account.
But I know where that line is. And I say and I do things that make you go, well, I know this is all phony bullshit, but that guy's real. And if now I'm real and I'm absolutely insane and everybody backstage hates me and I'm this diabolical person that is going to whip your ass if you do some fucked up shit, great.
It's crazy.
Dare I say this happened this past Monday?
Exactly.
With Drew McIntyre.
Right. So, again, that was Punk talking about all of this. Like, there's another part that I do want to kind of cover, and it goes into a bit of the kind of Hangman stuff a little bit more, but and he talks about Colt Cabana, so stick around for that. But overall, from that first portion of this interview he did with Ariel Helwani, great interview, by the way. Ariel Helwani, like, he's done a bunch of fantastic interviews with CM Punk. Go check out the MMA Hour for the full clip. It's in the description. But it's shocking. I was expecting Punk to come out here and say a lot of stuff that, about the pay-per-view coming up, about WrestleMania, I did not think that the big takeaway from this interview was going to be Punk being as explicit and as honest and open as he was about AEW, his departure, and his feelings towards a lot of things. Like, he called Tony Khan a clown. He spoke very candidly about his perspective of the Jack Perry thing, about the Brawl Out thing, or at least the press conference. These are not things that we expected him to talk about. These are things that we expected because like we hadn't heard anything from anyone who was in the room except for CM Punk and that one promo that Tony Khan cut at the beginning of Dynamite the day Punk was fired. That is it. And now Punk, I think this is partially like, I don't even think Punk is like out here trying to like control his narrative or anything like that. I think this is just who Punk is. Like he wants to put this stuff out there because he's asked about it from a person he trusts, I believe, in Ariel Helwani. And he trusts that platform. He trusts like that. And I think part of him does want to talk about it. Like, it's very obvious. He would not be saying these things if it was just like, like, I don't want to. He wants to talk about it to an extent. That's why he's doing it.
That's it.
Do you think the hatchet could ever be buried with Colt Cabana?
Probably not.
Has it ever been attempted on his side or your side?
No, he came up to me one time at a show and was like, I was at the curtain watching the show, and he came up to me and he was like,
Is this post-scrum or pre-scrum?
no, it was pre.
Okay.
And he was like, hey, can we talk so it's not weird between us? And I just said, I won't ever talk to you without a lawyer present. And that was it.
Feeling same.
What's that?
The feeling is still the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it caused all this dumb shit.
Right.
For no reason. I got the guy fired. He hasn't been on TV since whenever. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Like I applaud, and I said this to Hangman. I was like, man, I get taking up for your friends. I get it. That's commendable. I do that all the time. Right or wrong, I'll stand up for my fucking friends. But you fucking go on national television and jeopardize $1 million house that you ain't never drawn before. Now you're disrespecting me and you're disrespecting the business. This is my house. I drew that, not you. And that's egos is what it is.
What if you saw Tony? What do you think of that?
Hey, Tony, how's things?
Will your wife ever return to TV?
Probably not.
Is that her? I'm sure there's a open door, right?
I think there is, yeah.
Okay. So that's basically the bulk of the AEW stuff. He goes into it a little bit more, but we obviously have listened to this and discussed it ad nauseum. The most interesting takeaway there, in addition to what I said earlier about Punk being as candid as he was, is that Punk did not seem to enjoy it. And it confirmed, this interview kind of confirmed something that I think we all already knew, which is that Hangman promo, for whatever it was, whether it was that one line or whether it's what Punk said, which is Hangman went out there, went into business for himself, changed the promo. He had no idea what he was going to say. Regardless of what it was, that promo is what led to this entire thing unraveling in the way that it did. That promo that Hangman cut led to CM Punk's return to WWE inadvertently. And that promo also coincided with Punk being unhappy and done with AEW. You heard the way he spoke about it there. This is not someone who was a happy camper when he came back. The only reason he really came back was because he had no other way out. There was no way out of his contract. There was no way for him to leave. He still had reportedly a year left on his deal, which is probably true because he signed a deal back in 2021, assuming it's a 3-year deal, which a lot of these deals are. Then, yeah, his contract was not going to be up until this year's All Out, basically. So I think that the promo, that was certainly a turning point. And then, like, everything since then, as you heard from Punk, it just seems ever since then. And it's weird because some of this even harkens back a little bit to his Art of Wrestling podcast that he did 10 years ago. 10 years ago. And I think this is going to be another like historic podcast that CM Punk did. But it harkens back to like the same thing, similar to things he was saying 10 years ago about WWE and how, he felt like the systems in WWE or lack thereof failed him. How he was injured, how he was unhappy, how he didn't want to be there. And, it's just, it is unfortunate because at the end of the day, man, CM Punk in AEW felt like a match made in heaven. And how it turned into a match made in hell is always going to be talked about amongst wrestling fans. His perspective in this interview, though, I think will change the conversation a bit because now it's out there. And it's out there from a primary source. It's out there from CM Punk. If we're being honest, this is like, a lot of people are going to look at this and be like, well, why didn't AEW contact him? Why didn't AEW, take care of this before? Why didn't AEW take care of his medical stuff when he was injured and tore his tricep? And they're going to be right to do so. Because, again, that is, to me, the biggest indictment of AEW in this is if it's true that they didn't help him with this tricep. If that is true, and he had to reach out to Doc Samson, and no one came out and helped him, it's a damning indictment on AEW. That is not good. That is horrible. It's something that Tony Khan talks about changing the wrestling business for the better. That is not doing it, if it's true. Again, we don't know what Tony's side of that story is. We don't know whether or not, Punk was spinning. We know what we know, and we know what Punk said. This was a hell of an interview. I think, now that one person has talked, though, and this is like the real juicy part, I think now that one person has talked, though, you will see more stories come out. I think a lot of, like WrestleMania is going to be big, and it's going to be the big story of the weekend, right? But I think this week we're going to hear a little bit more about, the different sides of this situation. This is not going away. This is not a story that's going to go away. It's not a story that, Punk is going to be able to bury. This is going to be, wrestling fans are always going to be enthralled with this absolute hectic, chaotic story that is Brawl Out, CM Punk in AEW and his departure from the company. Just like I know all of you guys are. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments section. This is one of my longest videos I've ever done. Let me know about it in the comments section. Also, be sure, if you haven't already done so, to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Until next time, I'm Omer Q for Real Take Wrestling. Be happy, be healthy, and as always, keep it real.